Morning YouTubers, Michael Scott, Scotty Man Photo. I thought I'd take a few minutes this morning and talk about why you should print your photography. So for me, the bottom line, it's the satisfaction of completing a project. And I think I learned a long time ago, I go out and I capture images and, then I'd share my images with friends or put them online. And but it really came down to printing the images is really what I enjoyed. And I think printing the images is just kind of the final process in landscape photography. And then from there, obviously you can do a number of things with a printed image, but you certainly learn a lot from printing your images too. But it is a sense of the project completion. Another thing about printing your work is printing allows you to hone your skills. I think you learn a lot when you print your images. You pay much more attention to detail. You look at your computer screen and you can see your image and when you're processing it, but when you're done and you've got that final product, and that's the printed image, and then you really scrutinize it, you really evaluate that image, and you look at every detail and aspect of it, from composition to maybe you missed some dust spots in the sky, or there's just a number of things that help you really sharpen your skills and learn how to become a better photographer. And I really think printing helps you do that. Another reason that you should print your photography is because you begin to understand the difference between what an image looks like on a computer screen and what a printed image looks like. And I think a lot of people don't really realize that until they start printing. And you begin to see that on the computer screen, it's a backlit image, and on a printed image, it's at the mercy of the light in which you're viewing it under, and even the distance at which you're viewing it. But I think understanding the difference of that helps you really become a better photographer, because you're certainly more conscious of what the final image is going to look like. And I think, at least for me, when I'm out taking that picture, I'm always thinking about how it's going to look in print. And I certainly think that's another reason that you should consider printing your work. Another reason for printing is simply learning different papers. And when you learn different papers, you start to see your image differently, and in that your image is printed on paper, and different papers render different effects to your image. And again, you start to think about that when you're in the field taking a picture, about how that image is going to lend itself to a particular type of paper. And I'll give you an example. This is just a Canon luster paper. It's a good paper. I like this for just some general printing. And then this is a Canson paper. It's a matte paper. And the way they reflect light is very different. And the matte paper actually really doesn't reflect light. So if you're hanging these up in your living room in a frame, and you've got a lot of lights, different lights in the room coming in at different angles, you might select a matte paper because it doesn't reflect the light that you see, that you would see even in a semi-gloss, or certainly a really glossy paper. But you'll start to really understand what your image is going to look like in what room and under what lighting conditions. And I think that's another reason to print your work. Well, selecting a paper is pretty important, and you may not decide on any one paper. I know I typically use different papers. I'll use a metallic paper for printing certain images, and I think black and whites really lend themselves well to metallic type papers. And I'll also use sometimes, although most often I use a semi-gloss type paper, but sometimes I really like the matte paper too, and especially what am I going to do with the image, and that will determine what kind of paper I'm really going to use. So that's something to consider. But I think when it comes to selecting paper, it's personal preference. But if you're going to sell your images, or if you want your images hanging up for 100 years, you might want to think about pigment inks versus dye inks, and you might want to think about the archival qualities of the paper. So a lot of these papers are really a cotton or cellulose type paper, and they're free of acids and other properties, optical brighteners, that really affect the longevity and the way the paper will shift colors over time. So, having maybe you want to put this in a frame, and you want to use some of the border itself of the paper, and I think that's interesting. I do that too. I like to frame these and often view the paper also. But you can also use mats too, mat boards, and kind of mat these in. But there's a variety of things that you can do, but all of those things should be taken into consideration when you're selecting your paper. Another reason for printing your work is because there's just so much more that you can do with your images rather than just posting them online. Printing an image in addition to posting, I mean, you only have so many walls in your house, but you can put some of your favorite images on walls and throughout your home or in your office or in your office at work. And these images are constant reminders of the journey and the experience that you've had. And for me, that's one of the main values of printing. And I often pass by images and I'll stop and think, wow, yeah, I remember that experience. And I think that's what it's really all about, because really, truly, it's really all about the experience. And printing is just part of that. It helps you bring back those experiences and remember them. Well, the final thing I'll leave you with is this, is something I didn't think about till way later in life. And that's, you might not know where your image is going to be a year from now, 2 years from now, or 10 years from now. And the fact is that you might find your image in a magazine, in an online book, or better yet, a printed book. And it's best to understand how your image is going to look when printed. And I think nothing can take the place of printing your own work to help you understand that. You can send your work out to labs, and there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people send their images out to labs to be printed. I have some metal prints and other prints that I don't print at home, and I send those out. But nothing can replace printing your own work at home, because you just begin to understand every aspect of that image and how it looks in print, all the details. Just when you look at an image, everything just kind of is captured in your mind, and you'll see the slightest blemish, and it really helps you become a better photographer. And I think when I'm out there shooting, I'm always thinking about, okay, how's this going to look in print? And I think that's super important to keep in mind. And I think above all, I think it'll help you sharpen your skills and be a better photographer in the end. Well, that's it. I guess I'll go ahead and call it a day, but I hope you liked the video. And if you did, hit that little like button and consider subscribing. And drop me a comment and let me know what you thought. And as always, if I don't see you down the road, maybe I'll see you on the trail.